Hello and welcome to the Foxcatcher Review Show. My name's Julian Valence, joined up in Sydney by Nick Ashman. How was the weekend, my friend?
It was good. I was disappointed that you didn't sort of fly back through my house on your way back in that private jet that I know you've got after some elite tipping in the last week. So good to have your mum as a viewer of the show as well. Loving the feedback we're getting from her. And, well, it's just more rain, isn't it? Sydney town, Gosford I thought it was a good little meeting on Saturday at Gosford. A couple of horses to follow out of it. Things wrap up in Adelaide, of course, with the Goodwood. Giga Kick goes down. But Reserve Bank, we unearthed maybe he's just starting to come into his own. He's always shown a bit of ability. So lots to dissect. And then, of course, there was some good racing at Caulfield as well. I've got a mate of mine, a good mate of mine, and I watched the race with him. He's a part owner of Prince Tycoon in the who won the first race down there. He looks pretty smart as well, I would have thought.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a teaser, actually. I've got Hutchi in a little bit after you. I'm going to talk about Prince Tycoon, and it's in the Hen House. It's the best race by far from me on the numbers. Wherever it goes next, it's as good a 2-year-old maybe as we've got. So there you go. So your mate is in a good position. Well done on you too. Quickly, Reserve Bank, you found it. You were very good there on the way you spoke about that horse, but also identifying Barber. You said that it would be off the map. You put it in the right place, and it won the race. So don't worry about my Learjet. Your Learjet's going pretty good as well in those northern suburbs of you where you live in Sydney. Let's get to the track intel of Gosford, mate. So, look, it was the true position the entire circuit. They ended up on a soft throughout the day. How did you think the track played?
I thought the track played pretty true to how we expected it to play. Again, the track information was pretty good here. So we sort of said lanes 4 and beyond will provide the bulk of your winners. Every winner at Gosford on Saturday, just bringing up the results now, every single winner was in lanes 5 and beyond. Only 3 winners were more than 3 lengths off the lead at the 600-metre mark. So as we also identified on the previous show on Thursday, even though the rail was going to be off, it's such a tight turning track, it's hard to circumnavigate and come from too far back. Yep. So we take the lesson out of Gosford here. When the rail's true, it's usually off rail. You also don't want to be too far away from them at the 600-metre mark.
That's really good, and that's the key why we're doing this, is the lesson for the next time we race at Gosford in these conditions. That's what's we can be ahead of the game, and that's why we review it in the way that we do. That's the track analysis for Gosford. Let's get to the Hen House. So the races that we think maybe the market might want to gravitate towards, Nico, or there's some horses that maybe, yes, the winner might be the one as well, but maybe horses behind that we can follow with a bit of confidence going forward, ones that you think have rated okay. You've got 2. We start race 5.
Yeah, as good as Sober gets, which is an interesting name. This horse was 4th up, coming back to 2,100 metres after a 1.5 mile run. I'm dirty that I didn't find this horse, so I've put it in the Hen House to give myself a clip. His sectionals over the 2,400 metres third up from a spell late suggested he needed that run. He was strong from the 6 to the 2, and he just petered out inside that last 200 metres. He's a classic bet when he comes back in trip 4th up. His overall time here, 2:13.68. They went quicker in the Gosford Cup, as you would expect, but he was still about quarter of a second inside standard time. Last 400, 200 was pretty good. Last 200 metres for this race was actually better than the Gosford Cup, which I think is a good positive, given that this was only a benchmark 78. I think with him, what we're seeing now is he really needs these wet tracks to show his absolute best. I think they've got him fully fit for the first time this preparation going into Saturday, and I reckon you can probably stick with him going forward in sort of up to a benchmark 84. As you and I have spoken about for years, the gap between the 78s and the 84s are pretty minimal, particularly at a staying trip. So I think he can go up to an 84, still carry, whatever he carries there, 56.5 kilos in an 84, and be pretty competitive around the same distance range and on a similar style of track, a soft 7, soft 6, that kind of range.
Beautiful. So that was race 5. It goes into the Hen House. You got another race that goes into the Hen House as well. It was a little bit later. It was race 7.
Yeah, and look, this is a horse that we've been speaking about, and I thought it was a really good day for this review show on Saturday, Jules. I hate patting ourselves on the back, but the Vampire was a horse that we identified after his 1,800-metre win at Randwick. We said this is the first time he went to 1,800 metres, and he's run fast overall time, setting fast fractions, or being on a fast run race, if you're up on top of the speed, is what I'm trying to get out here.
Yeah.
And that's an indicator that he handled the 1,800 metres. And then he went into Saturday and he stepped right up from the benchmark 94 to the listed race. So he goes up a couple of grades there. And again, we see this pace of this race was only slow, but he was really strong late. His last 200 metres, it ranks 37th for the meeting, but it was about a length or so above standard. It was a good close from him, and he's just in a rich vein of form. And I think, as a younger horse, he showed a lot of ability, but didn't quite put it all together. He raced in I think at start number 2 or 3, he raced in a Group 3 up-and-coming stakes won by Tom Kitten. He was batting around against Tom Kitten. Then his next preparation, he's batting around with Zardozi, Celestial Legend, Ducasse in his autumn 3-year-old campaign. He wasn't disgraced in a lot of those races. And then he just sort of lost his way a little bit with injury, and he was off for the best part of a year. Gay and Adrian have got him back, and they've got him flying. And now that he's out to this distance range, I really think the sky's the limit for this horse, Jules. I'm not going to go off and say he's going to be a Cups horse in the spring, but I think in these winter months on these wet tracks, he can go right the way through if they can keep him ticking over. So one of two things usually happens with Tulloch Lodge horses, Gay horses, Gay and Adrian, I should say now. They fall off the cliff after about 3 or 4 runs because they're usually pretty prepped up for their first up run, or they just keep going.
Yeah.
They'll have 8 or 9 runs in a preparation, and he strikes me as maybe that iron horse that Gay's worked out and Adrian's worked out and know how to keep him fresh between runs, and I reckon you might see him. And they're also not pestering him. He doesn't have to lead. I know he led on the weekend. That was in a slow tempo race, so he's got that versatility to go forward. So he's got the ability in a fast run race to sort of camp on top of the speed without actually being involved in the speed battle. And then on Saturday, as I said, he led in that slow tempo race. That's great versatility for a horse to be able to have. And he doesn't over race when he doesn't lead. So I think in these winter months, he can keep picking off these races. We've got opportunities for him to go out to like the Mikel Cup and the Winter Cup and those 2,400 metre races to really show us what he's got. He can also go north to Queensland and maybe go have a crack at a Brisbane Cup. Who knows? Yeah. So there's a lot to unfold for this horse, Jules. But for mine, he's showing really good signs to be a good winter stay that we can follow through these winter months.
Yeah, that's really good for the punters out there. It's a really good positive push for that horse, and we'll talk about him a little bit later as well when we get to the hits and misses, because I think that's another layer that we can add to this horse as well. That's the Hen House this week for Gosford. Doghouse, so just a race that you thought maybe, look, this might have been its moment and maybe it's going to struggle from a market perspective and we probably want to be against it. It was the last race, won by Rakkonen.
Yeah, Jules, look, this is one where maybe the winner is a horse we can follow and give him another chance to prove himself. The rest I'm not so sure about. So they've gone out through 1,200 metre race, first 600 metres, what I would call a moderate tempo, just a fraction below standard, but nothing to sort of suggest it's slow. But then they've come home their last 600 metres as a race more than 3 lengths below standard. So at no point have they really ever shown to be up to benchmark 78 standard. The winner, Rakkonen, named after the F1 driver, of course, Kimi. He did make a little dash between the 4 and the 2, which was okay. And then he got tired late. Because he was first up off a long break, I'm happy to sort of give him another chance. But I think the rest of these, I'm happy to let them go in a similar class race next time they go around.
Beautiful, good intel from Nick Ashman there. That's the Doghouse for this week at Gosford. All right, let's get to the hits and misses. PointsBet trading floor here, Nico, for Gosford, and just horses that were backed. Was it their birthday? Was there certain reasons why they were backed on Saturday, or do we follow this money trail a little bit and we can give them a chance next start? Start in the first, horse called Trafalgar Square was $6 into $3.90. It misses. It runs third. What are we doing with this horse?
Well, look, I think it came out of a race where they ran some okay late splits behind Memoria first up. I think just a slowly run race, he's got a bit of dashing in this horse. So I think maybe they sort of gravitated towards a horse that could sort of settle handy in the run with that first use of the course and maybe show a bit of dash. But other than that, I can't really find a reason for why they smashed him, to be honest.
That's fine. Race 3, let's get to Joiselle. $4 into $3.30. Misses, unplaced. What do we do with this horse?
Well, I think the market got this one wrong. I don't know if she's a 1,200 metre horse. She hasn't shown much for us. And you and I have spoken about this. You've got to call the market out when it looks inefficient. And I think on this case, they were looking at some pretty good late splits from this galloper. Where they've got it wrong is the speed was always going to be on in this race. And it was its second go at 1,200 metres. Its first go at 1,200 metres was okay, but it was in a race that they crawled home. And it probably was sort of one of the last men or girls standing. I just thought on a sticky track, with what was going to be a genuine tempo back up to 1,200 metres. There was nothing in its figures to say it wanted it. So I reckon the market got it wrong.
So that's a really good point there. You're talking about how the market's got it wrong. So just say if we look at this horse again, and would you say, okay, I could start to consider it again? Are we thinking back to 1,000, back to 1,100 metres? Is 1,200 a bridge too far for this horse? Or then when you do see it in a 1,200-metre race, your initial situation with this horse is tempo. If there's no tempo in this race, it's more of a chance to be a betting commodity than if we've got genuine tempo, we're just putting it straight in the bin.
Yeah, I think that's the case, is backing trip or soft tempo. So there's two things. A horse can see out a trip. Like, you know, you could put a sprinter in a Melbourne Cup if all they do is trot and canter for the first 2,800 metres.
Yeah.
Right? So the race shape is pivotal into determining you've got to have a profile of a horse. This is a horse that's got to sit and sprint. Therefore, the slower the tempo, the better. You've got a horse that's more of a grinder. You want the fast tempo because it's going to outstay its rivals. This is a horse that over 1,200 metres needs a gentle tempo. I'm happy to back her back to 1,000 or even 1,100, but I'd probably want 3 weeks between runs because this was a fast run race.
Great. That's really good intel for a horse like that and why the market might have gravitated towards it, but why we would be looking for it the next start to be a betting proposition. Race 5, Junebug, $17 into $8. Now, it's a miss, but I suppose if punters took that each way price at the $17, they've probably made some cash on it. What do we do here with this horse going forward?
2 other mates are in this one too, so it was a good day. Look, I think the reason why the money came was she was pretty good 2 starts ago, Wyong. She won a benchmark 64, but it was very fast run and very fast overall time relative to class figures. So popping up to the benchmark 78, the figures were there to suggest that this mare can handle benchmark 78 grade with the right tempo, can absorb that pressure. Plus, she dropped 6.5 kilos. So the market said, well, hang on, this is a crazy price for a horse like her. She's already shown us that she's got the ability to match it in benchmark 78 through her times that she ran last start at Wyong in a benchmark 64. Now she gets 6.5 kilos off. The big ears prick for the pros. When those 6.5 kilos come off horses in any race over 2,000 metres or more, you can bet your bottom dollar the systems, the databases are having a real good look at that horse because 6.5 kilos off a last start winner is always a good thing to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if it has got that added value of being a bit of an acceleration horse, it would just absolutely light up their machines. Race 6, Power of the Brave, $12 into $4.50. Miss here unplaced. What about this one?
Well, Power of the Brave was coming into this, again, off a 1,000-metre race. So stays at the 1,000 metres on Saturday. But the difference is if you look through this horse's history, when it's raced in a really fast tempo race, it can get a little bit sort of exhausted by the last sort of 100, 200 metres. So I'm looking at some figures here that I'm looking at. And 2 starts ago, it was in an evenly run race. This time, if you look at its raw speed, that is what it had to do through the first 400 metres. On a soft 7, it just had to work a bit harder. I just think what's happened here with this horse is it's just blown up a little bit late. Its sectional rank for the race was 7, and that tells you that probably everything you need to know. Coming out of an evenly run race into a fast run race, it's just caught this horse out.
Yep. Race 7, we spoke about this horse earlier. You put it into the Hen House. You spoke glowingly about it for the future, Les Vampire. $4.20 into $2.85. This is the extra layer that I mentioned when we spoke about it in the Hen House, that the market wants to gravitate towards this horse, and you'd think they'll probably continue to do that. Yeah,
I think so. I think what they've identified is exactly what I'm seeing here, Jules, and that is this is potentially a really progressive stayer on his way through the grades, taking on Etna Rosso, Mr. Waterville, and Touristic. These are sort of horses that we know where they're at. This guy might just be better than them. Here he is, 53 kilos. He's got the ability to take it up. It was always going to be a slowly or moderately run race. There was not a huge amount of tempo here. The rail was off. We knew that at the start of the day, so they're not going to be humming along trying to find it. So here you've got a horse that's got good acceleration. I mean, he had the acceleration to match it in Group 3 contests over 1,300 metres in his 3-year-old season. He's got that turn of foot in him, but he's also got the ability to put himself on speed and really stick it out. So he's a highly versatile horse. The market's seen it. The profile on this horse that they've got, it's not just reading the race. They've profiled this horse and gone, he's better than them. And he's got 53 kilos. Let's truckload him.
Absolutely, and they did indeed. Let's get to race 9. It was a horse called Barber, $18 into $8. You identified it on the show on Thursday. I think at that stage it's sort of already been trickling into sort of $13, $14. You said that it would start single figures. That's exactly what it did. Well done, but the market wanted to be with it as well, along with you.
Well, it was just coming out of the right. Like, you just look at his history. This was sort of a form reference that I did more than just numbers. I mean, this is a horse that when he was with Godolphin, he was the favourite or the second favourite for the Blue Diamond, Jules.
Yep.
He's always shown immense ability. He's just lost his way. They put him up for sale. Richard Litton Connections bought him. And his first up run for them was fantastic. As I said, he was placed behind Pisanello and the 9th fastest last 200 metres for the entire day and the 4th fastest last 800. He was strong at both ends there. So there was really, I think if he was trained by Waller or one of the big names, he probably would have gone up $9 off the back of that first up run. It's just because he's with Richard Litt that they go, righto, you can have a bit more. But Richard Litt's a pretty handy trainer, so he knows how to get one going. And the other thing with Barber as well is he'd only ever had a couple of soft track runs throughout his career. So I think they sort of saw that initially and went, we'll just keep him out here. But if you actually delve deeper, the figures out of those soft track runs prior to going into Saturday's race, pretty bloody good. And he carried more weight quite often than what he did on Saturday. So, mate, happy to talk all day about Barber.
Yeah, it was a big hit. That was the hits and misses from the Points Bet trading floor. All right, let's get to the Group 1 review. So it was the last Group 1, obviously, in Adelaide. It was the Goodwood. It's probably the jewel in their crown. Just quickly from a track analysis point of view, Morphettville, it was out 6 metres from the 1200 to the winning post, out 2 metres the remainder. They remained on a good 4 throughout. How did this track play?
Again, mate, good one. The intel was pretty spot on. I think the intel said lanes 3 to 7. And then maybe later in the day they might get a bit wider. So the first 5 races were won by horses in lanes 3 to 8.
Yep.
And then the last 4 races were won by horses in lanes 9 to 18. So pretty much played how we thought it would. We only had one winner lead and win on the day. That was Cleo Cat. That was a black booker from the Bull Carnival. She's just a ripper, her. Lit Steel was a horse that we followed. Obviously ran second in the St. Ledger. So she came out and won again on Saturday. She won the SA Fillies Classic. And she's a half to Vow and Declare, a little bit of breeding information.
Yes, the buff comes out again, the breeding buff. The
buff, mate. So, but I suppose we need to talk about the main race of the day.
Let's look at the Goodwood. So won by Reserve Bank, a little bit just inside standard time, but hasn't busted the clock up. Last 400, 200, pretty good. 22.85, 11.55. Winner comes home in 11.32. It was a little bit of a masterclass from Jamie Mallam in terms of she seemed to cut the corner a little bit, probably compared to the favourite Giga Kick. They were probably both a little bit further back than they might have wanted to be, probably at the 500 entering that turn. But Jamie seemed to navigate a nice path, and Mark Zara on Giga Kick probably had to go a little bit wider. But all honours to the winner, I think.
Yeah, and look, the Mellams, the two of them, Ben and Jamie, really got a couple of rides right. She got this one right on Reserve Bank, which obviously was the feature of the day. But Benny earlier in the day on Private Legacy, that was a really fast run race and he saved ground. Smart move to save ground in a fast run race. And Private Legacy was able to find the winner's circle for the first time in a long time. But back to the Group 1, the pace of the race, first 600 metres, 4 lengths below standard. So it wasn't an overly fast run race. So the fact that they were able to get back inside standard time, I think, is a reasonably positive sign.
Yep.
Reserve Bank was a horse we identified on the previous show. The reason why we identified it was because I thought Giga Kick would drift. So I'll take the pat on the back for finding Reserve Bank, but I didn't really get the drift right there for Giga Kick. I was so surprised. I just thought the map looked terrible for him.
Yeah.
First up at 1,200 metres, he really had to go back because otherwise he was going to leave himself vulnerable, and it just was never going to pan out well. It didn't look to be an abundance of pace, and that's how it panned out. So I'm going to say again, I think the market got it wrong. I think that horse Giga Kick deserved to drift a bit more. I think they were just holding on to a figure from the spring and not paying enough attention to how the map was going to look and how the track was playing on the day.
This is a really good point because this actually creates, when we talk about horse racings, this such unique betting situation that there are just so many variables. So you don't just have Team A versus Team B, and if Team A brings its best, it's going to beat Team B. There's so many other variables in it, in the fact that, okay, we know which figures are clearly the best in the race. They have been. Now, yes, you might have had to go back in time a little bit, but even so, I think if it ran to its Everest number, it probably would still be good enough to win the race. But then there's all these other variables, and the one that you speak of the most is one that usually the bigger guys can really navigate early, is the map. And I think you're bang on there. Like, there just didn't seem to be a situation other than where it was going to land. it was just going to be in a really awkward spot. And even coming to the 500, to be honest, and the 400, I thought, I don't think this horse is even going to run a place. So it's probably done a really good job to get where it's got to, but geez, it was a long way back. And when he came around the turn and probably was close to the outside rail, you knew it was going to take a monstrous performance, and mathematically, it just can't be done.
Well, here's what I'll give you, right? So in the Everest, now different tracks, different days, I get that, but the Everest was actually a soft 5. So technically speaking, the raw speed should be slightly slower than what they were at Morpheville on Saturday. Through the first 600 metres, his average 200-metre split was 11.77 in the Everest. On Saturday in the Goodwood, his average 200-metre split through the first 600 metres was 12.24.
Yeah.
So almost half a second slower per 200-metre split. So that gives you an idea how much slower he was going in the Goodwood compared to the Everest. And I'm just surprised that the market didn't identify that. He's done everything he can in the 600-metre mark, Giga Kick. And to be fair, Mark Zahra, if the decision was made to go out there and take a sit on him, which I think is probably what they had to do given he was first up 1,200.
Yeah.
There's not much more the horse can do. He's run the fastest last 200 metres of the day. I don't think there's much more we could have seen from Giga Kick, and I almost put him in my horses to follow, but I just didn't want to seem like a dickhead.
Yeah. That's a very good point. But it's an interesting one as well, because I think if you're third or fourth up and this is his grand final, and we don't know where he's at, would the connections have probably decided to go, okay, we push the button here and we think there is no speed and we just run the risk that we end up being 3 wide, but it's a softish tempo. And I think that it's probably a different result.
Correct. 100% that's it. But part of doing form and selecting races is understanding, when I say intent, no one's saying that this horse wasn't trying to win. But it's not just about one race. It's about the preparation. You presumably want to give this horse at least 2 or 3 runs this prep.
Yeah.
And probably try and get another slot for the Everest this year. So he needs to put his hand up somewhere. Yeah. If they go out and it's a fast run race and everyone pushes forward because they see Mark Zahra trying to come across the face of the field and they all kick up, you can bet your bottom dollar that would have turned it into a genuinely run race. And then all of a sudden, you've got a busted up horse. They did that first up with Giga Kick a couple of preps ago. Remember that?
Yes, they did. They did.
It cooked him. And everyone hung Craig Williams out to draw. He got bloody willowed again and all that crap that people talk about on social media. Yeah. Now Mark Zahra rides him cold and they're blowing up again.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. You got to pick it like, you got to do, this is proof. This is the right way to ride him in the race on Saturday. It just wasn't the right race for him. Yep. And that's why he should have drifted out to 250 and that's why he got beaten.
Yep. Very good points. That's the track analysis and that's the Group 1 review this week. All right, in the Fox's Den, mate. So you just got the 2 horses. Are these both from Gosford or are these, where are we getting these ones from?
These are both from Gosford. Yep. So the first one's Fearson. Now, let me just bring up my notes here for you. Fearson ran in Barbara's race. Let's talk about Barbara again. What a great time.
What happened in Barbara? I forgot. Can you tell me what happened? What did you do again? Oh, that's right.
Mate, he gave him a real haircut. Oh, God.
Right, get on with it.
Dad jokes, yes. Okay. Barbara was really good. But Fearson only beaten 2 1/4 lengths. So it was a slowly run race. So nice freshness still in this horse's legs. I want to follow him going forward. How he wins his races, Fearson, is by bowling along up on top of the speed or being in a fast run race, not a slow run race. So this preparation, Julesy, he's had 2 really pretty slowly run races where the field has gone through the first 600 metres in both 1,200 metre contests at least 4 or 5 lengths below standard. So what he's going to appreciate now, he's probably ready to go to a fast run 1,400 because he's had 2 slow run 1,200 metre races, so he'll be all right to go to a fast run race now. And I just want to see him over 1,400 metres, up on top of the speed, and on a track that favours on pace sort of leader type horses. His 2 runs he's had, the 2 days he's resumed this campaign, he resumed at Randwick in the Hallmark Stakes. That wasn't a bad day to be up on top of the speed, but he just wasn't ready to go then. He typically improves. And then second up on Saturday, they took a sit in the Barber race with the fence being off, and it didn't work out for him there either. He'll be a big improver at a massive price. The other one is Etna Rosso, who I just think the key with this horse is keep him for staying races on wet tracks. He's an interesting runner for Chris Waller because since he's come across here, he hasn't had many opportunities at the right distance range on a wet track. He got one on Saturday. He wasn't good enough. He got beaten by Le Vampire, but he was still very good. He's been beaten by a horse that we think is a real up-and-comer. So I want to put him in the black book. He's finished second. His last 200 metres was the best of the race. I think he's just going to thrive on wet tracks. If he can dodge Le Vampire, he might be one that we can back next time out.
Beautiful. So there's 2 horses that come out of Gosford that we can follow with a bit of confidence there. Through the line. Now, usually we've got 4 or 5 questions here, but I think the first question I'm going to ask you could set off a chain and you just actually keep going for about 45 minutes because there's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, which then was added to another little bit of a layer on it. I think it was over the weekend or it might have been Friday or Saturday. An article came out again. So I'm just going to start this. And I'm just like, when you just lit a fuse and then you just run quickly away and you just don't know how much it's going to explode. So can you just quickly, if you can, what the heck is going on with this Rose Hill situation?
The answer is I don't really know. But yes, the article you're referring to, the Daily Telegraph, wrote an article about Gay Waterhouse's essentially lack of attendance at racetracks or racetrack, and they were pointing out how she doesn't go there anymore. And I think they were sort of my read on it was they were trying to sort of intimate that perhaps her opinion on the sale of Rose Hill is not as valid, given that she doesn't attend the races as much anymore. That's how it sort of how it looked, how it came across. Where it's really sticky is one of the things that Gay Waterhouse accused Racing New South Wales and I guess News Corp to some degree in the inquiry last year was that she said that Racing New South Wales had too much of a influence over the editorial. She was insinuating that Racing New South Wales has a bit of a grapple hold on New South Wales media, and she referred to the Daily Telegraph. And then the Daily Telegraph goes and writes an article supporting Racing New South Wales. So
shock horror.
I looked at it and go, I probably wouldn't have done that. And look, gay can be polarising. Not everyone loves gay, right? I like it, and I've got a great relationship with it. But, the fact is she's a bit of a national treasure now. Yeah. And, she had to fight to get the licence because of Robbie and some past stuff there. And she gets the licence, she wins a Group 1 in the first season, and she'll go down as one of the greats of all time. And if you go and knock on 100 doors around Australia, Jules, and ask them, have they heard of Chris Waller, Kieran Maher, Gay Waterhouse, you'll get 10 times as many people that have heard of Gay Waterhouse. She is just a household name. And I just think it was probably not the right call to pick on her. I probably would have left it, not because she should be untouchable, but it was I just think it's rubbed people up the wrong way. Where we're at in the sale is they've delayed it. So the members had started voting.
Yep.
You could see the count vote. We couldn't, the public, but other people could see the count vote. And then they decided to delay the vote and give people more information. And then they delayed it again. And so now we're sort of in this, and they've voided everyone's votes. And the problem is that the challenge they've got is they obviously want this sale to go ahead, but if they somehow, when I say manipulate it, I'm not saying in a corrupt fashion, but if they somehow convince people to vote for it, there's still going to be a huge group of people that don't want it that are going to be absolutely livid with this process, because how it looked was that someone went, oh, geez, we're not doing too good here. Call it off. Call it off. That's how it kind of looked to the outsiders. I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's how it looked. And as you know, in racing, we talk about optics. Perception is everything.
Yeah.
How your industry perceives you and wider than your industry is what the reality is. And the perception up here at the moment is not very good. I think the challenge for Peter V'landys and Racing New South Wales is to gain that confidence back. Regardless of where this ends up, they have to get the confidence of the industry back to support them. Previously, Jules, V'landys copped criticism from interstate because he was doing things particularly to rub the Victorians up the wrong way. And his response was always, my job's to look after New South Wales.
Yep.
And to an extent, he was right. And he's had some unfair mud slung at him as well throughout this process. I'll say that as well. People attacking him personally when it's supposed to be an inquiry about a racetrack.
Yep.
But the reality is now he's got his own people in New South Wales up against him. And so you've now got to find a way to get them back together, because as a leader, your job is to bring people together. So I can't see how this sale gets across the line without there being huge uproar, because it looked dead in the water. And it's like, okay, well, let's just delay it and hope they change their minds. That's kind of how it looks.
And they're pushing now this sort of big redevelopment of Warwick Farm I've seen, and then I think they've said they've bought land at Penrith or some joint as well. So anyway, it feels like the storming of the capital is going to be happening at some stage, and there's going to be a lot going on.
Yeah, and look, it might be. The thing is, Jules, I want to make this point. It could be a really good thing for the industry, but it's just been terrible communications about how that goes about. And like what you've got to do is you've actually got to give the communications before you start voting, because to turn the voting off and devoid everyone's votes, and then go, okay, now here's all the information. It kind of just looks like you're trying to manipulate it, which is probably not what they're trying to do, because it would have been good to get all this information first. And I spoke to someone who's pretty high up. I was having a beer with him on Saturday afternoon. He's very high up in NRL, and was very high up in racing. And he said to me, I think it would be the best thing for racing. And I don't think he's necessarily a massive fan of the upper echelon of New South Wales racing. And he thinks it is. So that was an interesting take. But, hey, I want to come back to you now. Yeah. Enough of the Rosie Hill sale, because we won't be able to work it out and no one cares what we think. I want to ask you, I used to work at Skies, before I came down to RDC and started working with your good self. They've sacked a bunch of race callers in the last week. There's been a bit of talk about it on social media, as there always is. Luke Marlowe, I understand, was calling the Port Augusta races from the studio yesterday. I've got a huge amount of respect for him. I think he's one of the best. Is this a good move, do you think? Because for me, the younger talent, we need to be embracing them. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. You've got a much more moderate view on these things than I do.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, because I think there's no doubt the squeeze is on to create synergies. Now, if you look at racing, there is just so much fat that is around. Absolutely. But is this the one that I'd be really attacking? I'd be looking at maybe more race clubs becoming, instead of, I think we've got 4 race clubs or 3 race clubs in Melbourne. I just feel like they just have to merge to become one, and then you cut the synergies there. And obviously, Racing Victoria seem to have a lot in administration too, that maybe they should be being cut as well, and maybe that's with Racing New South Wales. It's an interesting one because it's the way of the future. I mean, to use the term as well, even with Fox Footy and those kinds of places as well, they're not going to these games. They're not going to all these places, whether it be maybe in Darwin or whether they're in some other game at Hobart or anywhere like that. They're just calling them from the Fox studios, right? And this is the new sort of norm now. So they're saying, okay, we're not going to send all our talent. We're not going to pay for the mileage and all that kind of stuff. So let's just synergize it and have, say 6 to 8 callers who are going to call everything. Now, if that's what you think is the key to cost cutting, then I'm not for one. I don't know, because I don't know the ins and outs of the cash. But I will say, if I'm at home and I'm watching Port Augusta, though, do I really need the race caller there? And if that's saving so much money, then possibly that's fine. But I think the industry as a whole needs to go a bit deeper than that and just say, okay, that's an easy option possibly to do. Let's go a bit harder. Let's look at all these administration things that we have. And I particularly think the clubs need to think about, okay, do we need 3 or 4 clubs? Do we need all these racetracks? Should we be merging some of these? And that might be able to help reduce some of the tension. But it's going to be an interesting one. But what I will say is it's going to continue to happen. And I think it happens with every sport now, and I think racing's seeing that as well. So it's now going to be the new norm. I don't think they're going to go back now and go, okay, no, we got that one wrong and we need the race caller at Port Augusta or Port Lincoln or wherever it might be. I think it's going to continue all throughout the industry, especially for the next couple of years. Mate, we're done and dusted. We are done. It was a great review. I think you've given us some really good intel, especially on some horses coming out of Gosford. I think we've got Scone next week. So, again, another meeting with these situation. But continue the good work, mate, and I will talk to you Thursday.
And we'll have Scone Cup and Saturday. So 2 days at Scone, so we'll have a little bit for both days for you.
So Scone Cup's on the Friday, is it? And then they have the other meeting on the Saturday?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to give you a set for Friday and a set for Saturday. You're going to get 2 sets off me this week.
And he's flying punters, so just get involved with it. So track intel will be really important there because it'll be two days.
Yeah.
So make sure we have that covered. Punters, make sure you're listening to it. It's been brilliant since Nico came on board. Au revoir. Yeah. Okay, punters, Ashman gone, Gosford's done and dusted. Let's get to the Victorian set. It was Caulfield again. obviously you know me, it's Julian, because I've already been on talking to Nick. So this is going well. But we're bringing in Hutchi, Clint Hutchison from racing.com. Were you out at Caulfield?
I was. Hopefully
Good.
you know me too.
Yeah.
But then he don't.
I wasn't watching.
Yeah, no. It was a good meeting, actually.
It was.
It was a good meeting. Enjoyed the weekend. The racing was good. And the footy was good too.
Yes,
so,
footy was great.
A lot of close calls.
Well, there were a lot of close calls, and just quickly on that footy. So, had a segment, do a show on Footy Furnace on Channel 9. I know you watch every night. It comes on at about midnight.
I watched it last night.
Comes on at midnight. And segment 1 was going to be focused on the fact that 2025 was going to be the first year since 2019 it'd be a drawless year. And we worked all through the week on the price and how it would be good, and I think the punters should really roll into it. We dodged a bullet with Richmond and West Coast because we thought that would probably out of all those games. And then we thought, well, Giants have somehow we've dodged a bullet there because that was close. And then we're like, oh, well, North Melbourne, Brisbane will win by 7 goals and they'll be fine. Yep. Absolutely none. They've had an effing draw.
I know. You couldn't believe it. Quite incredible. And I did
segment dusted.
I did watch the fairness as well. And you were quoting Ross Lyon with
Cobble.
It nearly blew my mind.
The key I've found here, Hutch, is you should know as well. As long as you're entertaining yourself, you don't worry about too much else.
That was very good. And it was entertaining at Caulfield as well.
It was. And let's get into the track analysis of Caulfield right now, because out 4 metres the entire circuit, good 4, upgraded to a good 3 after race 6. I thought it was an advantage to be on speed probably for both the chute and the circle, but I thought it raced brilliantly. But what I also say is I'm loving the new Caulfield right now.
Oh, yeah.
They're not putting that.
Too much irrigation on.
They're not.
No.
And I love the upgrade, and I love that they're running fast times. And you know what Caulfield does when this happens? They run straight.
Yes, they do. So it's a big ups for, all of the MRC. They've changed their policy a little bit, I feel.
Yeah, they have. I think
but
they have.
punters are betting with confidence as a consequence. I thought that the rail actually wasn't great, only because there was that little bit of wear. So I think he wanted to be a little wider.
That's fair.
But under those circumstances, you get your opportunity.
Correct.
Still
you can push out to where you want to be.
Exactly. They were running good time. I thought the track played really, really well. And we also are a function of this unbelievable weather.
I know.
Hello.
I know.
It's Melbourne, and this is not normal.
Yeah. It ain't normal, I'll tell you. But
I'm a bit disappointed.
lean into
it. As a consequence, actually.
Well, to be honest, I actually went up to the Gold Coast during the week to escape the weather, but the weather was probably better down here than up there. Yeah. So anyway, decided to live on the Gold Coast. So
have you?
That's maybe for a while.
Okay.
We'll see how we go. But I'm sure you'll drag me back down. That was a track analysis. Hen House. Races we really like here, Hutch, and we've got a few. So I've got a couple, you've got a couple as well that are going to go in the mix. Let's start with race 1. It was the 2-year-old race, and we don't usually play into this space, but Prince Tycoon wins the race on debut. They've gone 3/4 of a second inside standard time. I love this last 400, 200, 11.29, 22.40 last 400. People might be looking at this race and just quickly off the TV go, oh, it's just a bit disappointing. It beat a horse that couldn't win on its win a maiden. This number's gone big.
This is a very good performance. It's taken until these 2-year-olds are nearly 3 for you to get impressed with one. I know. And actually get excited.
I'm excited for this horse. I really am.
It's a good horse. I think that given that sort of steady first half of the race, I mean, more than half the field ran 11.5 and change the last 600.
No doubt.
But you've still got to be good enough to put up the last section. Yes. I mean, he was fastest last 200. He's a nice horse, and he did a good job. He had to dig in. The vibe or the market was spot on.
Yeah.
Good performance. Good horse.
Yep. I think you don't usually say when a horse wins in the middle of May, a first race of, a 2-year-old, because you usually have seen him in the Slipper and you've seen him in the Diamond. He's going to stack right up, right up to the top of the ones.
Well, he's one of the better ones we've seen for sure.
Absolutely. That was race 1. Let's get to race 2. It was the staying race. It was won by Fernao. They've gone well inside standard time here, Hutch, so just about close to 2 seconds. So we know the last 400, 200 is going to be a little bit soft compared to the rest of the day, 12.16, but the winner comes home 11.68. I think this horse put the writing on the wall last start behind a horse called Affluential, who's a jumper, but that was good enough to win here.
Good, strong speed. Yeah, it was an interesting watch, the race, because it was like, I don't know, it was like some sort of peloton that each one is having a crack, but it's set up for the back markers. But his closing effort, I thought, with those sectionals you mentioned, is exceptional.
Yes.
We heard it from the rider after the race. The young Jet Stanley said, he's got to turn a foot like a horse over a lot shorter. He's got an engine. I don't know. He's pretty smart, this horse. think they'll win more races with him, and he's got some versatility in how you can ride him too.
Yeah, I think it was really good, and I think just as a race overall, we've always been really critical of the staying races somewhat in Victoria, just off Broadway a little bit, that they lack a bit of guts. I think this race, I think the market might gravitate towards it whenever we see these horses against a couple of the other races that we usually put into the doghouse. Let's be with this race. So races 1 and 2, that was solid. Let's get to race 8. It was won by a horse called War Machine, who was second up, who first up probably should have won at Mornington, didn't have, just didn't work out for it. He's always promised so much. He's got plenty of ability, and you think this is a horse and a race that we follow with a bit of confidence?
Yeah, I want to follow the race. They just went way too quick in this race, but he had an ability to take a position as well, which I wasn't 100% convinced about necessarily that they could ride him like that.
Yeah.
Parked in behind the speed. He won nicely, but I think overall, off a strong speed, his closing sections were okay, but they were always going to be a little bit dulled with that pressure in the race. But I think look, I'm not sure where they'll aim with him. They aimed high with him before, and it might have been to his detriment.
Yeah, with that.
So where do they go now? I'm not sure, but he's clearly a horse off my sort of looking at my ratings. He's got a good stakes race in him.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question about that then. Would you send him to Brisbane? If you had him, knowing the fact that, as you spoke about really well just before, that I reckon they went bridge too far trying to go with like Golden Eagle and those kinds of races with this horse. Now they've sort of just, and they, even first up was a listed race at Mornington. This horse is still rated pretty low.
Yeah.
They've paired it back a little bit here on Saturday and they win. And now they're going to go again to the,
Yeah. The Stradbroke would be the one that they might go. I think you'd need to get his rating up a little bit more, I would think, because there's a lot of riches as well.
Yeah.
Not that far down the track, aren't there?
Yeah,
so why not take a couple of more wins, refreshen, and maybe the spring? So I don't know about Brisbane. It's a big call.
Here's another question for you. 1,200 metres or 1,400 metres for this horse? What's his best distance, do you think?
1,200.
Yeah.
I think he's better run on 1,200 metres.
Yeah, with a bit of speed in the race, and he can just absorb it and then finish off.
He was good. I mean, he'll get – that's why the Stratty might be appealing.
Yeah.
I think he could be good over either, but I prefer him myself, 1,200.
Yep. Okay. And the last race you identified as well at Caulfield that you
I didn't mind the last race. Yeah. I mean, winner of the last, O2 Good was the horse that I didn't mind the run of. Prancing Spirit was okay, but I think overall the time was more than satisfactory. It was actually a race that that's a horse that I thought performed well. They were very negative out of the gates. It was a kind of run where they wanted to have a soft run first up with bigger races in mind, this preparation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call because we're going to get to him or her, I think, maybe even a little bit soon.
Last two races of the day for me, decent sized fields. I don't know if they rated quite as well with you as they have with me, but I'll be following the format of both of them. Once again, I can trust a bit of the form because of the conditions of the track, because of what we saw. So you can sort of pick and choose runs out of those races and on the day because it was pretty consistent what we saw. We're not 100%. Seeing a deteriorating track.
No. You can trust it. So this is the thing when we talk about it, and you spoke about it at the start, that punters' confidence, they want to bet there with turnover, but it's also coming out of the race and going, I trust that number. I trust what that horse has been able to do. Whether it be good or bad, I can trust it on that track, gave me exactly what I needed to know.
100%, because what we saw up, a couple of states, north of the border, I think even in Queensland, you're getting horses winning by massive margins and you kind of go, well, some revel, some don't. How much do you just got to forget the run with some of them. So no, trust the meeting. It was a really good effort.
Okay, that was the Hen House this week. All right, Doghouse. So put this race in just because I just think the market's going to be against this one a little bit, Hutch. It was race 3. It was won by Wonder Kid, who sort of went to the front. They haven't been able to beat standard time, half a second outside. Last 400, 200. Look, it's okay, but 11.86 when you don't break standard worries me a little bit. I think it's a race I reckon the market's going to be against. A horse that runs second preferential, like it's been up for a long time. I just don't know where there's any horses that you go, okay, they continue to press. I know this horse is only second up, but I think a performance like this might be a little bit dull next start.
They were going to ride him quiet, went straight to the front level.
Yeah, there you go.
It was quite funny. But that said, look, he's probably better over 2,400. He'd be the only one, I think. And he's probably did the right thing, I think, Bo Mertens on the day by letting him
for sure.
roll along. But there was a length between, second to 7th, 8th, whatever it was. There's nothing between them.
Nah, exactly.
So good luck trying to pick the bones out of that.
Yeah, 100%. And sometimes you have those races where there's not much margin, but it's usually a really slowly run race and they all zip home really fast and you can go, no, I can pick the eyes out of that one a little bit. This is a race when you've got the no margins, you just go, nah, there's just no guts to it. So I think the market goes against it. That's the Doghouse this week. Hits and misses here from the PointsBet trading floor. There's a few that we want to talk about and identify. I'm going to start with the first, Prince Tycoon, $4 into $1.95. They just wanted to be with this debutant. We've spoke about it. We love the race. He can go right to the top.
Yep, no, definitely. He's a nice horse. So market was, like you said, very, very strong. It got to about even money and then they didn't want to get it too much shorter than that, did they?
No, it's probably short enough, really, for a debutant when you're going, okay.
But a lot of the others were debutants as well.
No, that's true. And so the market's also touch and feel a little bit there because they're like, okay, the big guys don't really have a number yet and maybe they do some work on trials and stuff, but they're not going to really put hard energy into it when they don't actually have a proper number. So
the market was right.
It sure was. Race 2, Galileo's, $5.50 into $4.20. It runs second. We like this race. That feels like some of you, that was yours.
Oh, no, it wasn't. No, I just can't believe they backed it. Okay. Tell you what, it did look the winner at the 200, didn't it?
It did. So, look, the race has gone really well. So, I feel like, I think if the market wanted to be with it on Saturday, the market won't want to drop off it from this week because the number's pretty good. Okay. It's probably better than last night. And it's not one of mine. I can assure you of that. But
I think I just feel light on.
Yeah, well, yeah, sometimes they do in the bunk beds. But we'll just see because I think the market might go again here. Okay. But that's the time for us to be happy to be against the market when you're a punter and go, okay, well, the market's really going to be solid because that's going to be a big number again. Sometimes you go, well, I know what this horse does or doesn't do.
He gets in front of goals and
just absolutely
out in the full.
Mark Blitzcavs. He's hit the post. He's hit the post. Race 4, Matty, I love this horse. $4 into $2, big hit. This race hasn't rated through the roof. So I've got it when on debut going through the roof and I said it's going to be a group horse and we were into it and it was great. But this one's gone okay, but it hasn't gone monstrous.
No, it hasn't. It surprised me a little bit. I think that, look, she's a nice horse. It's a she, isn't it?
Probably.
I think it is.
Another 3-year-old filly.
Medea's a nice horse. Yeah. And I thought won well enough. It was a great ride from Luke Curry.
Yes, it was.
He made every right decision and she just won. It probably wasn't the pressure I want. I was expecting a bigger overall number from her, but she was still strong late, good closing sections. Look, I'm trusting what she did at Sale. I'll give her another chance. I think the form will be okay out of the race.
I think it will be. The interesting one for her now is that I think they're going to go have a crack at that Fred Best race, which is a really hot 3-year-old race, and if you win it, you get into the Stradbroke. So they're quickly going to the top with this horse. So it's going to be interesting.
Improve a lot off that.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Race 6, Mary Eliza, $4.60 into $2.55. Big hit. Had no luck first up at Mornington. Got into an awkward spot. I thought the ride here was outstanding in the fact that they went, you know what? We might have to absorb some pressure here. Obviously, Moody and Coleman said this horse is fit enough. It can absorb the pressure because you were thinking, geez, they've gone way too fast here and it's going to really struggle and something's going to get it late. But I thought the ride probably was what won at this race. And I know it got close late, but I just thought that was great, aggressive riding.
Yeah, no, well, that's you. This is one of your early plays as well, wasn't it? Yeah, Mary. I was one of the few people in Victoria and Australia that wasn't with it. I was on Muirfield. It ran third. I don't know. I'd look at that. I think it was a good ride. Job done on the day.
Again, not a massive number here.
No,
not a massive number here.
Against her. I think a lot of people want to continue to be with her, and it was a good ride to get the win on the day, I suppose, because he won. But I just thought there wasn't a lot of substance there.
No, correct. And that's the thing here. Just purely from a market perspective here, we go, yes, she's hit. But now we look back on it and go, the number's not great here. And also the fact she was only second up. And I reckon that one would have taken a little bit out of her. If you see her 10 and 14 days, I'd be easing off. I'd want to see her again in 3 weeks, a month at minimum, to be honest, because I just think that one might have taken it out of her. Race 7, Saban, $3.90 into $2.07. Miss, run second. I don't know what to do with this horse.
I'll tell you what it does. It sleeps the light on as well.
Yeah. It's.
I'm convinced. Now, I could be completely wrong. I watched the replay 3 times on the day, and I haven't seen it since. But Saban was going to win that race. Yeah. And then I thought, well, from going to win it and quickening, then sort of just leveled out a bit. The horse on the outside came and it seemed to almost lunge again. So I don't know. I don't know about Saban, and it got a great setup in terms of the pay. Like, how many times can you keep going? And you've got to take a short price with a back marker that needs everything to go well. deal me out. I've had enough.
Yeah, it's a really good point because you're always going to have that high price point with this horse. You're not going to get the double figures about this horse,
No.
so you've got to make the decision: do I want to be playing in this space about the horse that we know's got some negative traits?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really.
I'm
good
probably
point.
seeing things, by the way, when I thought it was sort of racing in patches. But that's what happens when you're on one. But
hallucinogenic mushrooms are very good. I've heard.
They are. They don't work for some people. Not sure they really work for me, but honestly, I couldn't. I couldn't
this is the
step
thing.
in again.
It's impossible to know what to do with this horse, but at that price point, it's probably a leave me alone. Race 8, your horse here, War Machine, $3.50 into $1.85. I know there's some deductions there with LAU coming out, but still, the market wanted to be with it at the death, and I think it's a horse that we really like. It's just going to be interesting to see what they do with the placement.
Exactly, that's the key word: placement. Yep. Where do they go? I'm leaning towards probably not sending him into too rich a race. But then again, a lot of it's who you're racing against. Yeah. Some of these benchmark 78s or 90s are as strong as the listed race.
Yep.
So I don't know what they'll do.
Here's talking about don't know what you'll do. Race 9, Pivot City, $3.50 into $2.60, runs unplaced. Is this a horse that needs to draw an outside barrier maybe, and you just have it at 1,200 and you just hope there's heaps of pressure and he might come over the top and win? Because other than that, you got to deal me out of him.
Well, people that were bagging the ride need to go and have a good look at themselves.
Yeah, I didn't.
Pivot City,
he's not
ordinary. If he needs all these sorts of things and keeps going out that short, I mean, a lot of us thought comeback gelded. The first up win was enormous.
It was.
What a run.
Second up was great because it was against the pattern. Huge at Moonee Valley.
First probably crack at the track. It wasn't as pronounced the pattern probably at the as it was at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Then another excuse was a Bendigo.
Yeah. Yes.
Once again, bit against.
Yeah.
But you can deal me out of this.
Yeah.
So I wasn't with him on
He
the
doesn't
weekend.
have gate speed. So this is a problem for him to begin with, maybe a little bit Sabinish as well, is that they don't have gate speed, so they can't put themselves into a position. So if you draw low, you're already realising I'm already 3-back, 4-back rail, aren't I? And then I need things to happen. So if you can't put yourself into a high percentage play, you become a low percentage play horse, and we're having to take a premium price.
Exactly. And okay, I get that he might be better outside horses. A lot of them are a bit like that. But then again, even more so, no reason to get involved. And he seemed to close off okay inside of horses at Bendigo, so I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
He was playing. His last 100 or 200, I don't care. Not a lot happened before that. He couldn't take a position. A run presented itself late enough that he could hit the line. He didn't hit the line.
Yeah.
This is a horse that's constantly coming up very short. Yep. I mean, the punters have had enough, Jules.
Yeah, I think they have.
The fingers have been burnt.
Yes. Yeah, they're burnt.
No more.
Hits and misses. No more. Talking about fingers burnt, Hutch, setting fire to it. Now, this is going to be an interesting discussion because I want to get your thoughts on this because we're going to show the replay of race 8 at Morphettville, which is the Goodwood. Okay, and probably from the beginning of the race, as we see these gates open, here's the moment, I think. Now, this horse, maybe for context for the punters out there, is off 182 days. We're talking about Giga Kick here. And it's really fascinating to try and get your head into the mindset. This horse has been well supported too in even money. Is that I wonder what the connections are saying to Jock in terms of where this horse's level of fitness is. Because you could tell from the moment those gates opened, Mark Zara didn't even look to see to go positive. He was immediately going, okay, I've got to try and find a backside. And then when you saw that piece of string, he was in big trouble.
He was in huge trouble, but the winner ultimately was inside him. So
yes.
I just
the corner though. Jamie cuts the corner as we can see on the replay. Jamie cuts the corner.
Right.
Mark has to come to the outside. He plays the normal
he plays the percentages, and it cost him the race ultimately because there might be a school of thought that he could have had the run that was afforded to her if he followed Charmstone further potentially. But anyway, all that aside, I think the key point here is that the negativity early. I understand where you're coming from in terms of they've got this preparation. They don't want him to have a hard run. I'm not buying that really because for a couple of reasons. You're in a Group 1 here.
Yes.
This is, you're here to win.
Yes.
He can be more positive out of the gate. So the actual pace wasn't all that strong. You're giving away far too much going on a class horse. You've got 54.5 kilos. If you've got to be a little bit wider and 3 lengths closer, then so be it. I'm a massive Mzara fan.
Yeah.
He might have been given the instructions to go back for the reasons that you said. But what's to say that it's an easier run, sitting handy on a soft speed or that tempo without cover than coming from last and setting a horse an impossible task where he's got to absolutely launch late. Like, where's the evidence for that?
Yeah, no, and it's a really good point. And this is the why I wanted to create the discussion here, is because I think if this horse was third up, and probably at peak fitness, there is no doubt, even if Mark's probably given the directions that they want to ride a little bit negative, I think no doubt he pushes the button and just goes, we're going forward, and I don't care if we sit 3 wide because I'm on the best horse with 54.5 kilos, which he was, and hence why he was backed into $2 favourite. And I think...
Well, here's a question for you. If he goes forward and settles 6th, 7th, 8th, covers a bit more ground but faces the breeze, does he win?
That's a really good question, because I don't want to take too much away from Reserve Bank and the way that Jamie cut the corner and won pretty impressively. But I still probably think that if Giga Kicks where possibly if his third up could be, I think he wins. Because I think he could have absorbed the pressure. You could see him coming through the line.
But I don't think there was even that much pressure in the race.
No, there wasn't. This is my point.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. I think he wins because there was no. It became quite a soft tempo.
Not going forward. He would have won. He could have potentially won.
Yeah, and I wonder. And so this is the thing, which
Reserve
is we
Bank's
have
not
to
giving him 3 or 4 lengths
and picking him up.
There's no way in the world.
Yeah.
Like we've got to, you're giving away way too much at the start there.
Yeah, and that's the key, setting fire to it. When you saw that position of Giga Kick at the 700 or the 800, you knew you were just throwing it straight into the fireplace. You just were. He wasn't going to be able to make up that ground. I think Reserve Bank comes home 11.32 and Giga Kick probably comes home better and has ran really well. But from that position, he actually couldn't do it. He's not going to run 10.9 on that track to get home and win the race.
The ones that want to be contrary, they will say to you, well, Reserve Bank was half a length off it at the 800 and still won.
Yeah,
so maybe, I don't know. I thought it was far too negative anyway. When you're on a class horse, this is the other thing. You're on a class horse, you can ride them a little bit more confidently.
You can be a bit ugly, can't you?
You can. You've got to win ugly sometimes.
Yes.
I mean, they can't launch from that position to win. I mean, it's nearly, unless you ride like Jamie did. And that was an unbelievable ride from Jamie Mellon.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Absolutely.
Ride.
So that's setting fire to it this week. Fox's Den, Hutch, you've got 2 for us. We've actually got 3. We aligned on the last one, which will make the last one the first one. 0-2 good. You identified that race as a race you think we want to be with confidence. This is a horse that sort of put it all together last prep and ended up sort of in, winning some really high prize money races. I reckon they'll win a championship final, 1,600 metres, Flemington.
It's a feel-good story, this horse. Just a small trainer.
Yeah.
And he's got a very talented mare.
Yeah.
This is a copy and paste from our discussion surrounding, going back early, quiet run first up with other big races in mind. So I kind of get it more with this rather than a Group 1, but it's that theory. They didn't want her to have a hard run. She drew right. I think it was the right tactic.
Yeah, 100%.
In this instance, she got to line well. She'll be fitter and she's better over further as well.
Yeah, no, really nice horse. The other 2.
I've got Limsol Toro in there. Now, this is a Singaporean also had good form. Wouldn't believe that he's rolled into a race that they have absolutely busted it open early. Okay. They were hammering along. And I think, a lot of these imports, if they run as well as that, it's quite a high rating race on my figures.
Yep.
I think he'll need a few weeks between runs, but they'll put him in a race somewhere. There was a bit of market support around for Limsol Toro. He'll be better over further as well. And in a lot of races at this level, he'll be able to dictate the race on his terms and prove hard to beat. Stick with him.
Yep.
You might get a similar price in an easier race next time around. It wasn't a bad race.
Good.
And the other one I've got is from a maiden, and it was at Bendigo. Ozam's Razor for Henry Dwyer's stable. Second start. Look, it did a bit. There was good speed in the race, good late sectionals. Overall race rated pretty well. It'll go to a 64 if they want to win one. And it'll also get over a bit more ground.
Beautiful. There's the 3 for In the Fox's Den. Hutch, we're done. Beautiful.
We're done.
We are good. Yep. We Eagles are better, so that's a positive.
No, they're not. Don't even talk to me about the Eagles. Look, seriously.
Just what I mentioned. What are your thoughts on bounce? Like bouncing the ball at certain times in a game. We'll just leave it at that. Awareness.
On the fairness, I saw your boys said exactly what I thought as well.
They did. They're a very smart crew, that group.
Yeah, they
Bartel
are.
and Jimmy Hurd, they're going well.
And what I want more from you is, and I love this, these Ross Lyon quotes. Yeah. So what was that one again?
Let the cobblers cobble.
More of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually got one, but I know that when I use it, It's the biggest mic drop of all mic drops that I'll never be seen again on TV.
Last night was a good mic drop. I enjoyed it.
So
you haven't watched it, people. You don't watch The Furnace. Jules is only on for like 45 seconds.
At best.
It is very good 45 seconds.
Bye.
What are you really gambling with?
For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.